much more sophisticated than the late-night audience. I love this. It's great to be here in the earlier time slot, which of course means we're now the warm-up act for Margaret and David, which is a dream come true.
Absolutely. Although I must say, look, I think we might have our work cut out for us a little bit. I mean, you guys, you're all looking very good, but I mean, have you seen how sloppy David and Margaret are 30 minutes before their show starts?
Come on, guys.
Get ready.
Go and have a shower, both of you. Preferably not together this once. All right, and while they do that, let's get into this week's Limbo Roundup.
Yes, and the nation remains in limbo tonight after neither party was able to win an outright majority on Saturday night.
Yes, and as we go to air, the result is still very much on a knife edge, which is fairly appropriate given the whole election began with a knife edge. So, Jules, where are we at? Talk us through the latest.
Well, look, it's almost certain that we'll end up with a hung parliament, and if we actually just have a look at the chamber, this is how a hung parliament looks. As you can see, the ALP hasn't really taken to that very well.
No, look, it was a shocking result for Labor, wasn't it? I mean, whatever way you look at it. And now there's very much in damage control, aren't they? I mean, Gillard even refused to let one of their key power brokers, Mark Bibb, to go on a Q&A this week, forcing them to leave an empty chair in his place.
It was pretty full-on defensive tactic by Gillard, and not confined to Q&A either. Like, even in Mark Bibb's family car, the driver's seat is now left empty. I mean, that's very dangerous, but, you know, that's what Gillard asked.
She's a very tough woman. Look, there's no question, Gillard is under pressure. I mean, she's only been Prime Minister for 62 days now, and you'll remember that at the start of her reign, she made a very bold prediction.
There will be some days I delight you. There may be some days I disappoint you.
So let's just break it down and have a look at how Gillard's fared. If we see the days she's delighted us, that's sitting at 1. That was her first day as PM. And days she's disappointed us, well, that's pretty well every single day since.
Yes.
But of course, now the ALP recriminations begin in earnest. And Maxine McHugh was the first member to openly criticise Labor's campaign, although she wasn't quite as candid as some people are saying she was. Like when Kerry O'Brien asked her if she had any regrets. I think we all know what she was really thinking.
Any regrets about doing all this, Maxine McHugh?
No. None. Absolutely none, Kerry.
No,
come on. This is, look, it's, I made a very clear decision. I wanted to play a role in public life.
And
Desperate.
Yeah.
So now Labor's best hope of surviving is to form a minority government with the Greens and, of course, the 3 independents.
Yes, the regional renegades. We've got Tony Windsor, Bob Katter and Rob Oakeshott. They now hold the key to this unique situation. In fact, if we just have another look at the chamber, now that baby bassinet there, that's just Wyatt Roy. But on the independent benches, Bob Katter's offered to form a minority government with whoever lets him bring his horse into Parliament.
He is a maverick, that man.
I love Bob.
You got to love Bob, but he is a maverick. And, you know, I think some people say that he's a bit stuck in the past. I don't think that's fair, even though Bob himself is not quite sure what era he is living in.
We're moving out of the 19th century into the, whatever we're in, the 21st.
It's hard to keep up. It's hard. I don't know.
It won't be easy for Gillard and Abbott to negotiate with Katter. He's a hard man to please, especially when you look at the issues that he's named as the real deal breakers.
There's a freedom issue here. You know, we're not allowed to fish much at all. We're not allowed to go camping or shooting or even boiling the billy.
The billies.
There you go. It all comes down to Australians' right to boil the billy.
Absolutely. Bob's one of those people who, you know, puts a good cup of tea ahead of responsible bushfire management.
I'm with him on this. Yeah. I love the billy. The billy's an important part of who we are. I mean, I was making a cup of tea just this morning in the office and people love the culture of the billy.
Use the kettle! What are you doing? Bloody kettle! Where you going?
Teething problems. Normally it's fine.
But to help put the Bob Katter bargaining position in some kind of context, would you please welcome Australia's foremost bush balladeer, Andrew Hansen.
Once a jolly madman camped by a billabong. No, really, that's actually where Bob Katter lives. Under the shade of an akubra or 3. And he sat and he waited for a permit for his billy to boil. Oh, you'll come a waltzin', Bob Katter, with me. Down came a lame duck mounted on a faceless man. Up jumped the madman and told her with glee, we must stop parallel imports of Filipino bananas in our tucker bags. Oh, now she'll come a-courtin' Bob Catter with me. Up rode the stutterer, mounted on his 12-speed. Down came the climate deniers, 1, 2, 3. Bob said, who's that jolly dumb fuck you've got in your cabinet? You won't court Bob Catter with Barnaby. Ah, camping with Catter, fishing with Catter, who'll come a-shooting with Catter and me. You'd be forgiven for thinking that bloke must be smoking on a billy bong. But now everybody's waltzing with Bob Catter and me.
I felt disillusioned and let down by the two major parties. That's why I voted Greens.
I'm an inner-city trendy who's never had to deal with real issues like drought, transport or having to run your own business. That's why I voted Greens.
I'm trying to get into the pants of this hot hippie girl who's into dolphins and shit. That's why I voted Greens.
I'm a cool hipster from Melbourne who always goes against the grain just to look alternative. That's why I voted Greens.
I was just stoned on election day. That's why I voted Greens.
The Greens, the wanker's choice since 1972.
It is time now to take a look at how the night itself unfolded last Saturday. The highs and the lows of what was an extraordinary election night.
Yes, neither leader conceded on Saturday night, but they both made speeches at their party headquarters. Gillard's speech was quite a subdued affair, whereas Abbott's was a lot more rousing. Look, the Libs were definitely having a happier night, and the great thing about Liberal supporters is they really don't care about what's good for the country, so long as it's good for them.
They're going to look after me and my money.
And look, the big call of the night was also won by the ABC, I thought. Yeah. Not the call of the election, but the call to cut out of Kevin Rudd's smug election speech first.
Yeah, I got to say, Kerry O'Brien shows experience in spades, I thought. Not only calling it first, but getting the reasons right too.
The Liberals have suffered a primary vote swing against them of 1%.
Now, we're cutting away from Kevin Rudd at this point, and it could go on for some time.
It did go on for some time. It was beautifully played by Kerry. That was an incredibly bland speech. And if anyone wants to hear the whole thing, it's not worth tracking down. But to convey the basic gist, we've asked the Russian YouTube star, Mr. Trololo, to summarise the speech in song. That's more like it.
Now, ratings-wise, the ABC was the big winner on the night.
Yes.
In fact, the ABC analysis was so much better that even Channel 7 decided to ditch their own reporter and just film the big screen with Kerry on it.
Although, not to be outdone, Sky News is making some pretty big claims of their own. According to David Spears, the whole world was watching their coverage.
We have viewers joining us tonight in Washington, also across the Pacific, across Asia and in China as well on CCTV.
Well, they were on CCTV in China, and I know there are a lot of people in China's 7-Elevens who really appreciated that. I mean, they go nuts for David Spears.
I love it.
Oh, Spearsy in China, like that.
But the best thing about election night are the dummy spits and the stoushes.
Oh, yeah.
And last Saturday, there were lots of them. There were exchanges between Michael Kroger and Wayne Swan, Barnaby Joyce and Mark Habib. But the harshest call of the night, I thought, came from Laurie Oakes to Mark Latham.
Revenge is sweet. But sometimes on election night, even winners can be losers.
Yes.
Like National Party leader Warren Truss, who, now he recorded some big gains that night, but he finally has a chance to have his moment in the sun and...
I do have Warren Truss here with me. How are you feeling?
Well, certainly the Nationals have done well. All of our sitting members have had significant...
We're being interrupted, I think. We've just had Bob Brad walk onto the tally roof. We might actually just go over and have a listen to Bob. Warren, do you mind if we come back to you?
OK.
And they never came back to poor old Warren.
Poor old Warren, always the bridesmaid. But look, it wouldn't be an election night without the usual accusations of ABC bias, which I think, frankly, are unfounded, even though Kerry O'Brien still can't tell the ALP and ABC apart.
Slight swing to the ABC and to the ALP. That's the second time I've done this in 10 years. I wish those letters weren't so similar.
Poor I mean, at least he can laugh about it. It was a nervous laugh, admittedly, which we now present for you in song.
But personally, I don't see where all this talk of ABC bias comes from. I mean, it's not just the channel for elitist lefties. It's
no,
far from it.
No, you've only got to look at the sort of places they go for the Your Shout Vox Pops on Insiders to see that this is a network with its finger on the pulse of ordinary Aussie battlers.
I'm here with some members of the Canberra Antique Classic Motor Club,
the Melbourne Chess Club,
the Perth Jazz Society, the Tasmanian Fine Food Awards,
the Amateur Winemakers and Brewers Club.
A group of athletes about to go overseas for the World Dwarf Games.
You don't get more representative than the World Dwarf Games, do you?
No, you don't. Now, this election was very unusual, but some things never change in elections, like those swarms of people who try and hand out how to vote cards at polling stations.
Yes, they're a pain in the arse. And at the Chaser here, we have a bit of a tradition every election of exploring some easy ways of trying to avoid the guys who hand out the flyers.
We do. So, straight to technique one, impersonating a sex offender. Now, this one's particularly effective when voting in a primary school, and it worked pretty well at first.
Would you like my support? Would you like my support?
Christian Democrats.
I should have known a sex offender would be no deterrent for the Christian Democrats. For technique two, I got a little more direct. And this started off well too. Come on. But then one of them went in for the kill. Unfortunately, she saw my sign and... Think about it. Whoa, she's gone. But alas, I got cornered by the persistent Liberal anyway.
You voting?
Damn it! No luck there either. So, for my final attempt, I tried a, shall we say, more committed approach by chopping off my arms.
Humpback whales, blue whales, and minke whales, all united to save one extremely rare and endangered creature, Peter Garrett. Driven from his natural environment in 2004, Garrett is now beached in the Outer Ministry, slowly dying, much to the concern of these whale activists. This magnificent creature has won the hearts of these whales with his enchanting song. Hopefully, the whale's conservation efforts will succeed, or soon this noble creature may only be found in history books.
Now, last week on the show, we had a look at election coverage in other countries and paid particular tribute to the Grand Master of election graphics, Jeremy Vine from the BBC, who sadly has been sucked into a 3D universe of election statistics.
Now, I think Channel 9, they must have been watching Vine's work pretty closely, I think, Jules, because their election graphics guy, what's his name?
Michael Usher.
Oh, that's Michael Usher, that's right, yeah. Well, Usher was the only Aussie presenter who took the plunge this year and went fully 3D.
Yes, now here he is, inside the chamber of Nine's virtual parliament. And, well, he didn't stop there. He had a few other tricks too. He went into a portrait gallery. He also had the unseated Labor MPs on some dominoes, which he knocked over in very dramatic fashion. Here he is dropping what seems to be a bomb on Adelaide.
Fair call.
I don't know, it might be a little harsh, but...
No, though, I've got to say, I think Usher went a little bit over the top as the night dragged on. I mean, look at this. I fail to understand how this really enhances the election coverage. I'm not sure what's happening.
Leading Australian technology, so pretty exciting.
Look, I mean, I understand, you know, the networks, they like to spice things up a bit, but I mean, really, you know, a virtual chamber, you know, a 3D parliament and all of this stuff, does it really add to our understanding, Jules?
Andrew Hansen, shame on you. The chamber graphic is absolutely fundamental to election broadcasting.
Oh, my mistake.
Now, as you know, in Australian chamber graphics, there is a very strict dress code. Of course, you've got the blue for the Liberal Party and red for Labor. And the only person who can wear normal clothes in the chamber is somebody like Jeremy Vine or Michael Usher, or me. Now, MPs wear party colours, so you can tell who's got the numbers, but also because a graphical head is often far more attractive than a real head. Being inside the chamber for a presenter is a great opportunity. For example, this is Wilson Tucky, and this is what I've always wanted to do to him.
Mate, Julian, I cannot let you do that. That is disrespectful.
Back off, Usher. This is my virtual parliament, eh?
Mate, and I tell you what, you can have it. Look what the ABC's bought, what the Commodore 64 version of it. Channel 9 spends $1 million on this
You may
stuff.
have better graphics, but at least my chamber is a fully functioning jumping castle. What do you think of that, Usher? Somebody get this clown
ABC.
out of here.
That's just
go on,
disrespectful.
Usher, out you go.
Get your hands off me. Then you're not a real Usher.
Pwede ka nga malay ba pare julk ramane election ngolain.
Igual, nakatan yamin makna.
Amany mak mo kamre trangone bele wale kana jama yol mo malamany mak ko nangatil.
Nali wala ngone julk maramanya.
Ulam ko la limrong bay la kamo ganyan.
Nata.
Ulam mo kana dong gara lur kun den.
Kana cerwal kanone balanya mirinja nan.
Ya main darwa militera. Kabolo wala limrong go ya mangana marangal. Ka baila karangal na limburong wala warpam on urong elur kon dongara yulk tuna oyo.
Wale balangone yaka laiba pare pikana de bala kan limburong. Ni balam kan yakan ni na man mak nol garam bangen romo.
Yo, min mak na ngone wala na yulk maramay limburong.
Well, as Labor waits nervously to see if they can form a government, the independents have said that one of their main priorities is parliamentary reform. In particular, they don't want a repeat of last year's debacle when someone let Peter Garrett install pink bats in the roof of Parliament House. It just did not work. But here now with their own take on the decline in Labor's fortunes, would you please welcome, all the way from America, ladies and gentlemen, Simon and Garfunkel!
The rank of superior got a late call from an insecure power broker. Said he'd seen a bad poll, so he had Kevin rolled by someone just as mediocre. It's the Labour way to stab, kill and slay. Whatever it takes to stay in disarray. So the new Labour mole called a very quick poll, moving forwards in a new direction. But the pro-Rudd spivs leak like a sieve and may have cost themselves the election. It's the Labour way to damage and betray, then express dismay when the voters stray, so they lose the day. Goodbye, Gillard, Queen of Altona. See me and Julia down in the junkyard. See me and Julia dumped in the junkyard. Take it, David. They can't stop the votes, but they can't stop the votes. Even safe seats now look deadly. And if they need any tips on why the votes slip, they should ask a citizens' assembly. It's the Labour way. They're like an unrisen souffle, and now they'll pay. They're a sad cliche, it's Groundhog Day. Goodbye, Labour, goodbye to your numbers. See me and Julia down in the junkyard. Me and Julia dumped in the junkyard. Thank you. Thank you, friends.
Election campaigns are boring, but the most boring part of the entire campaign would have to be election night itself, where you have to spend 7 hours watching people count.
Which is why, if you want to deliver great election night TV, you need to avoid covering the election at all.
Now, Channel 7 reporter Meggie Palmer, she really went out of her way to avoid the election. In fact, she travelled to Wales to get away from it.
Now, there is a sense of excitement in Barrie today. They're very proud of Julia Gillard.
Now, we could sit here and tell you that a Wales correspondent's a waste of money, but we won't do that.
No. Instead, we'll cross to our Himalayan correspondent to tell you. That was a complete waste of money.
Now, Koshy, to be fair, made a lot of fun of that whole Wales thing.
Oh, he did?
I gotta say, I reckon the reporter got the last laugh because she unearthed an amazing scoop about the house that Julia Gillard once stayed in when she was a toddler.
There are locals that are calling for a plaque to be erected above her house.
Yes, and we have a shot of that plaque right now. This was the site of the most pointless live cross ever.
Now, not every network has the same news values as Channel 7.
No, I mean, look, some of them even settle for doing crosses to where the action's actually happening, in Canberra.
Yeah, but with these live crosses, they can be quite tricky, Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
So you want a safe pair of hands, making sure nothing goes wrong, like Sky News.
We're going to go to John Kerrison on the tally room floor now, where he is joined by Nikki Sava, columnist for the Australian newspaper. John, what have you got to say?
I don't have it, but... I don't have it.
Oh, sorry, we're still on here, I believe.
There's a little mistake, but luckily they ironed everything out for the next try.
OK, we're going to go to John Kerrison on the floor now. We've tried to go to him twice. We're hoping audio's up and running. He's there with Nikki Sava from The Australian.
OK, look, that's another just little mistake. That's fine. Just cross to David Spears instead.
We will go to it now. We've got David Spears, I think. We're gonna go.
Crossing between two channels here, which makes it difficult. But Peter, can you hear me now?
I wouldn't rule this out that the Liberals couldn't make a comeback here late. That is a pretty appalling result.
Okay, we'll come back to Peter. It's
OK, we've got David Spears.
Oh, well, we're meant to be on to...
Oh well. Another little mistake.
Look, but the important thing is, when something stuffs up on live TV, you just need to cover it up. That way no one can tell anything's gone wrong.
Yeah, look, I'm getting a bit thirsty, Chaz. How long is this clip? I might just make a cup of tea.
We'll just have a look at those figures now. Have we joined the national panel? No, we haven't. We're still on. OK. We're coming to the national panel shortly. Well, that's how it seems to us here as well.
Sorry, did I miss anything?
Just a little mistake. But overall, it was very exciting, I thought. So no wonder Sky had a 24-hour countdown to the start of their coverage.
Well, they should have had a 24-hour countdown over their silences.
But ultimately, great election coverage is all about getting in there first.
Yes, obviously. Well, I mean, you have to wait, of course, until enough votes have been counted before you start analysing, like Channel 7 did.
So what have we got here? A swing, 9.8 from ALP. So too early to call, but nice indication. That's a big swing.
19 votes to 12. Call the election now.
It's funny you should mention that, actually, because only minutes later, at 8:01 p.m. over on Sky News, Peter Van Onselen called the whole election. Behold, Peter Van Onselen's evening.
The Labor Party are going to win this election. They are not losing enough seats. I do not think that they are going to lose this election. She's a bit tighter than I thought when I called it before. We have absolutely no idea who's going to form the next federal government of Australia.
Well, he was a brave man to call the election, and even braver to change his mind 3 minutes later. And a brave man deserves a great award. So, Peter, this one's for you. Peter, hey.
Congratulations, Peter. You have won the award for the most premature election call.
Would you like to make a speech?
Yeah, no, look, I was wrong. I'm on the first one to admit
Actually, I think
that,
we've changed our minds about that. You loved him presenting our national treasures. You loved him tossing on about opera and Shakespeare. Now catch Chris Taylor in his ponziest side project yet. Bonnets and ballerinas.
This bonnet is all the more remarkable for the fact that it was once worn by the great Russian dancer Agrippina Vaganova.
Combining his two greatest passions, join Chris as he embarks on a worldwide journey of pompous delights.
This Paris company is being commissioned to perform the complete works of Jane Austen as a ballet, and I, for one, am just a little bit excited.
And gets caught up in some misadventures of his own.
I can't begin to describe how liberating this feels.
Bonnets and ballerinas, coming soon, hopefully somewhere obscure on ABC2.
Good. You guys are jealous you didn't get that.
It's a good gig.
No, that's going to run and run on the ABC.
Although I've got to say, I've actually got a new job lined up for myself as well.
Oh, yeah? What are you doing?
Well, actually, I'll be working as Barnaby Joyce's speechwriter. I have to say, I find it very rewarding when I see my words come out of his mouth.
We've got a feral pig problem, which they almost have to fill out a Magna Carta of bureaucratic red tape before they can go anywhere.
Just like the election itself, we found it very hard to get an outright winner, but in the end we could not go past the faceless men of the ALP, whose poor strategy and behind-the-scenes interference could very well have cost Labor the election.
The Grand Mal for 2010 goes to the Federal Campaign Director of the Australian Labor Party, the faceless man himself, Carl Bitter.
Carl, you won the Mal. No, come on, Carl. You want the Mal Award? It's the only thing you're going to win this election, Carl. Do you want me to put it in your back?
No, thanks anyway.
You don't want the Mal?
No, sorry.
Okay.
Thanks anyway, appreciate
So, Carl Bitter takes out the final Mal for 2010. Faceless to the very end. Yes.
Well, look, sadly, folks, that is all we have time for, but never fear, because the main event is now here. Are you ready for At the Movies?
And Margaret and David have got a huge one for you tonight. They'll be reviewing Going the Distance. French Flip, Father of My Children. And speaking to the director of Father of My Children, the director, Mia Hansen-Long.
For watching over the past 5 weeks. We hope you've enjoyed the democratic process. And if the independents can't reach any decisions, then we'll see you for another election show in 1 month's time. Good night.